8. Positive climb.
Here we're running in towards the show from the holding pattern, so we've been holding for about 3 or 4 minutes out away from the show. Once we're cleared in, then I come in here, descending down to about 600 feet, and we're in configuration 3, so the flaps at setting 3, and about 600 feet. The speed at this stage is about 150 knots, so it's a typical approach configuration for the airplane. As I come past the crowd, I'm turning away and starting to climb, and as I roll out of the turn there, we're selecting the landing gear up. So the landing gear doors open, the landing gear starts to retract, and I'm now climbing up to around 1,500 feet, ready to turn back in towards the display center. The landing gear is up, and we stay in the configuration 3, so that's the flaps at setting 3. Speed at the top there is actually quite slow, probably down around 140 knots, and then we'll accelerate slightly as we come back down. And I'm not using very much bank, probably about 30 or 40 degrees angular bank in that turn. And at this stage I'm now looking out of the window to see where the display line is, to make sure that I line up properly on the display line.
800.
So descending back down to 600 feet again, and the idea is to now start the next maneuver, which is a 360-degree turn, a complete circle, flown in front of the crowd, and climbing as we're going away from the crowd, so starting at about 600 feet, climbing up to around 1,500 feet at the far side of the turn, again using about 40 degrees angular bank. One of the factors in the display flying is to allow for the wind, and on this day the wind was actually blowing us slightly towards the crowd, so I was having to slacken off the turn a little bit as we go away from the crowd to make sure that I've got enough space to complete the turn without crossing the display line as we come back in. Now descending back down to around 600 feet to pass in front of the crowd again at 600 feet.
800.
And again at around 150 knots. The next maneuver is going to be the low speed pass. So again I have to roll out and just fly away from the crowd a little bit to give myself room to turn back. This case I'm not climbing quite so much, so only going up to just above 1,000 feet and keeping the speed fairly slow so that I don't have to lose too much speed as I roll out for the slow speed pass.
Squeeze a little bit. Should be good. You see?
So as I come onto the display line now,
1,000.
I'm starting to ease the height back down towards 600 feet again, and as I roll out, throttling right the way back to allow the airplane to decelerate down to around between 120 and 125 knots. So it's a little bit slower than the normal landing speed of the airplane, but still just above the speeds where the flight control laws protect the airplane from the stall. So flying past around 600 feet and about 125 knots. Very low power setting at this stage. And then as I come past the center of the display, turning away again to climb back up. And this time we're going to accelerate. The Singapore Airshow is unusual in that the display is done out over the water, over the coast. So unlike most other displays, the takeoff and landing are not part of the display itself. The crowd cannot see that. So unlike the other displays which finish with a landing, in this case we're going to finish the display with a high-speed pass at around 260, 270 knots. In order to be able to do that, though, I've got to go quite a long way away just to give myself room to turn at the higher speeds to come back past the crowd at the higher speed. So also now changing the configuration. Everything so far has been done in configuration 3, the flaps at 3. Now we're raising the flaps gradually up to flap 1, using that configuration to allow me to turn back, and as soon as I'm lined up with the display line again, we raise the flaps completely so that the airplane is in its clean cruising configuration, and that allows it to accelerate up to about 270 knots as we come past the crowd for the last time. So flying past around 270 knots and then pulling up using about 2G and turning, and the aim now is just to do a climbing 180-degree turn, and in the climb going right up to about 5,000 feet, which today with the cloud there is just above the cloud in some places.
50 is end of Airshow.
So rolling out just in front of the crowd and climbing up into the cloud up to about 5,000 feet. And that's basically the end of the display there. All we do now is a handover to air traffic control again to turn downwind just over the main Changi airport to come back and land on the runway 02 right at the Changi East airbase for the flight display.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 5,